For 30 years, the death of Kurt Cobain has been officially ruled a suicide. It's a story that's basically been etched in stone. But what if the science that whole story is built on was just wrong? A brand new multidisciplinary analysis has taken modern forensic tools to the original evidence. And well, their conclusions might just change everything we thought we knew. So tonight, let's put the official story under a modern microscope.
And here it is, the bombshell conclusion from that peer-reviewed study. This isn't just some theory, right? It's not speculation. It's a forensic conclusion built by re-examining everything. The old case files, the autopsy reports, the crime scene photos, and the statement they make is just stark. They're saying he was a homicide victim, and the scene was completely staged.
So the big question is, how did they get there? It's really important to stress, this isn't about conspiracy, this is about forensics. So let's see if that official story, the one we've all known for decades, actually holds up to modern science.
So on one side, you've got the official ruling from 1994, suicide. And on the other, you have this brand new study saying homicide, a staged scene. And that's the massive conflict we're going to dig into piece by piece. And we're going to start with the evidence from Kurt Cobain's own body.
The first, and maybe the biggest, piece of this whole puzzle is found in Cobain's biology. It all starts with the toxicology report and one single number. A number this new study says changes literally everything.
1.52 milligrams per liter. That's how much morphine from heroin was in Kurt Cobain's blood. Now, back in '94, investigators saw that number and it just confirmed what they thought, heavy drug use. But this new team of forensic scientists, they look at that exact same number and they see the key that might just unlock this entire case.
To put that number into perspective for you, a morphine level above 0.2 is considered fatal, and that's even for someone who uses heavily and has a high tolerance. Kurt Cobain's level was more than 7 times that. I mean, we're talking about an extreme, absolutely incapacitating dose.
Which leads us to the real million-dollar question here. With that much heroin in his system, could Kurt Cobain have physically been able to do everything the official story says he did? Could he really have tidied up his drug kit, moved across the room, and then positioned a long-barreled shotgun to shoot himself?
Okay, so science gives us a clock here, and it is a really, really fast one. Pharmacological studies tell us that when you inject heroin intravenously, it reaches what's called peak plasma concentration, basically when it hits you the hardest, in about 30 seconds. 30. We're talking a heavy, leaden feeling in your limbs, followed by immediate, deep sedation.
So here's the problem. The suicide story needs Cobain to do all of these things: roll down his sleeve, neatly put his drug kit away, get up, move, and then handle a heavy shotgun. All inside that tiny 30-second window before a 7 times fatal dose would have made it impossible. The new study basically says, no way. That timeline just doesn't work with the known effects of a dose that massive.
But wait, there's more. The original autopsy found tissue death in his brain and liver and fluid in his lungs. The new analysis points out that these things don't happen in an instant. They take time to develop. They're signs of a body being deprived of oxygen over a longer period. Kind of like what happens in a slow overdose, not an instantaneous gunshot. The study suggests he was already dying before the shot was ever fired.
Okay, so if the biology presents a massive timing problem, let's turn to the weapon itself. Because this new study argues that the shotgun, a Remington Model 11, presents a fundamental mechanical problem.
See, the Remington Model 11 isn't just some generic shotgun. It has this very specific mechanism called long recoil operation. What that means is, for the gun to spit out the empty shell casing after it's fired, the entire barrel has to be free to slide all the way back. That's a critical detail. If anything stops that barrel from moving, it won't work.
Now, according to the official police report, Cobain was found with his left hand gripping the barrel of that shotgun. So the researchers behind this new analysis did the logical thing. They tested it. They got an identical shotgun and fired it over 30 times while holding the barrel in the exact same way. The result? Every single time, the gun jammed. The hand blocked the recoil mechanism, and the gun failed to eject the spent shell.
And this right here is a major, major contradiction. Because at the crime scene, the spent shell casing was found on the floor. It had been cleanly ejected from the gun. So if the tests show that his hand being where they said it was would have made ejection impossible, then how in the world did that shell get there?
And the paradox just gets deeper when you see where the shell was found. Crime scene photos show the casing was on a jacket to the left of Cobain's body. Here's the thing about a Remington Model 11. It ejects shells to the right, always. So for the shell to end up on his left side,
As the study concludes, that's just physically impossible.
The blood spatter on the gun tells a similar story. The study looked at what's called back spatter. That's blood that blows back from the wound. And they found it inside the vents on the dorsal or trigger down side of the gun. But here's the kicker. The shotgun was found lying on the floor with the trigger up. The only logical explanation for that is that the gun was fired in one position and then flipped over before it was found.
Okay, so the biological evidence and the ballistic evidence are raising some huge questions. This is what led the researchers to look for other signs of staging at the scene, and that, of course, starts with the famous note.
So here's the note. For the most part, it reads like a breakup letter with the music industry, about losing his passion. But then you get to the very bottom, these final 4 lines, and everything changes. The tone shifts completely into a direct suicide statement, and critically, the handwriting seems to change too.
And this isn't a new controversy. The study points out that multiple handwriting experts have questioned the authenticity of those last few lines for years. And those are the only lines that explicitly talk about taking his own life. It's just one more piece of evidence that just doesn't quite seem to fit with the rest of the story. So when you put all these pieces together, the toxicology, the impossible timeline, the ballistics of the gun, the note, you're left with 2 versions of what happened that simply cannot both be true.
The study's conclusion is blunt. They assert that Cobain was incapacitated by that massive heroin dose, period. He would not have been able to operate the shotgun. They go on to allege that the weapon was fired by someone else and that the spent casing was then manually placed at the scene to make it look like a suicide.
Now, for balance, it's absolutely crucial to state the official position. In 2014, the Seattle Police Department reviewed the case for its 20th anniversary, and they were unequivocal. They found no new evidence, nothing to warrant reopening the investigation, and they reaffirmed that the original conclusion of suicide was, in their view, correct.
And so that's where we're left. A 30-year-old official ruling on one side and a new, detailed, peer-reviewed scientific analysis on the other, claiming that ruling is impossible. This isn't just about revisiting the past. It's about whether new science can actually rewrite it. And it leaves us with the biggest question of all. What happens when a forensic truth challenges an official one?